Hello, friends, and welcome to the Interworld podcast, where we explore the intersection of personal and collective transformation. My name is Yasha S. Wagner, and I'm a PhD researcher in the field of psychology, well-being, and spirituality, as well as a founder of the Interworld Institute for Inner World Peace. You can learn more about our nonprofit initiatives by going to interworld.org. Today I have the great pleasure and honor of speaking with my new friend, Pavel AEON. Pavel is a world-renowned, internationally touring breathwork facilitator, wellness practitioner, biohacking expert, and much more. Pavel sort of introduced this combination of breath, dance, and meditation into an alchemically transformative and psychoactive biohacking event that I attended that was a lot of fun and really beautiful in Colorado, and supported with some drumming earlier this year. And Pavel has gone from sort of a grassroots startup with this work all the way to sharing the stage with some of the biggest leading names in the field, ranging from Deepak Chopra and Mantak Chia to featured in articles in the New York Times and Time Magazine, playing big events for people in the Kennedy family, all kinds of fun stuff. So Pavel's really making a big wave, and the purpose of it all, which Pavel is not, in my experience, too focused on the details and the promotion himself. He has a whole team working with him. But the purpose of it is what in Upper AEON, which is their organization, they call Earth 2.0. So today we'll be talking all about that shift into a new Earth paradigm, which is also a shared mission with our organization, similar practices and studies. So very excited for this conversation, to learn more about Pavel and continue to weave our collaboration deeper into future possibilities. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Pavel of Upper AEON. Hey, brother, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Thank you. What a grand beginning. I'm excited to go deep with you. I think there's a lot to cover in this world that we're living in. So many of us are shifting, feeling it on one way or the other. I think our cycles, our patterns are continuously putting us on our feet in many different ways. At least if it is anything like my life, one day you think you've got it, and the next day, a next series of, lessons make you think that you've done no work up until this moment. But I love this because there's this thing called universe. It allows us to really push through a lot of those limits in this lifetime.
Yeah, I love that. And it actually reminds me of this metaphor about the spiritual path, what you're saying, where it's like when we start, we really feel like beginners and we have no idea what we're doing when we're confronting our shadow and all kinds of triggers and questioning reality as we go deeper into the real inner work. But then maybe we gain some degree of self-mastery with some particular issue and we level up, but now the tests are harder and we feel like a total beginner all over again at that new stage. And so the further we're going in, the more and more we realize that we don't know yet. It's just such a fascinating process. And I love this image that one of my teachers, Maestro Manuel, has shared, where you encounter an obstacle like a big wall and you think you'll never get over it, and you just climb up and eventually you hit another one and you realize that they're actually steps on a pyramid and not walls. So those are some of the images that you made me think of right away.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like the minute that I think I have achieved something, the minute I have to humble down that I know nothing, because we're such a limited form, but yet such a beautiful form if we make this thing called life on earth, a true piece of heaven or love, joy. But yet, we've chosen to come in this time to really face a lot of obstacles, a lot of the fear. If there's one enemy of human, it's fear. and everything leads back to, fear of death. Like it's every single choice that we make comes from either degenerating place or spiral or regenerating, and so what I've been learning is like, man, like it's never been this fast how quickly we're growing. And what used to be like few months, like I used to feel like you get a little piece, you get some time off to like settle in that level. It now feels almost on every other day there is like that whole cycle you go through that used to be a year. So very interesting.
Yeah, well, and one thing I want to mention, which I didn't say in your bio, is that in my experience of spending some time with you at an event and starting to get to know you, especially behind the scenes, not just as a recipient of the facilitation, but as a supporter, hanging out with you a little bit, I noticed that you and your family really do seem to put yourself into this alternative vibration of how to move in the world and how to live life. Like I feel you guys saturating in your trusting the present moment and following the spirit and traveling all over just to be in service. And it's really beautiful to see that. But I'm mentioning this because you also do have a family, and you have one child or more than one. I wanted to remember.
I've got three in total. So
Wow.
one from previous marriage, and one she's 21 months old, almost 22 months old. She's almost 2 years. And yeah, it's so interesting. Like I used to view spirituality, or I don't even like to call it spirituality. It's like it's a way of life as a convenience, like something that I would reach for when I'm in pain, in hurt. And I grew up with so much pain, whatever it was, emotional, physical. I was molested as a young child. I also just like many of us, all this trauma, all this drama, all of these. I had an anxiety, I had a suicidal thoughts when I was 18. I mean, I was a mess. It was this never ending up and downs. But something deeply inside of me kept on knowing that there is more to life. And this is why like I made this way of life that part like as a life. And so whatever we talk about, we don't talk about anything that we have not fully authentically embodied. And to a point that we know, right? Because also we just don't know. And I've learned that really it's this constant place of surrender, awe, and also humbleness that needs to be put into place. That the old way of thinking is separation, the old way of thinking is dualistic mindset, the old way of thinking is I have to be so spiritual to be more spiritual than other spiritual people, and all of these like old things that don't do anything different than if you're not spiritual. It's like the same type of world that we're looking at right now, that still has war, that still has a misconception that there is not enough for all. And so for me, I've been on this like path of self transformation or discovery that led into this deep longing and wish to serve others and to also allow to reflect this for others. And so our why is really strong. It comes from a place of how do we unite the world, one person at a time, through whatever we're doing in our events, with our products, whatever that we're offering. And so whatever that is, it's like bringing that to our children and learning that from the roots of the masculine feminine with my wife. And we're not perfect in any way, but we're doing our best to demonstrate what that could look like when life is not driven by fear anymore.
Yeah, well, it was really special to meet both you and your wife and your youngest child, and to learn that you're a father of three and see you collaborating inside of your marriage. And the reason I brought it all up is because I think that working through the challenges of being in relationship and taking care of yourselves as a family is one of the most grounding things in our world. Like it's a reality check, you know what I mean? So it's really cool to see somebody that is attuned to these really high values and ideals, like the upper aeon, the upper sphere of human principles and intentions of being, free and connected to the heart and so on, but is grounding that in the daily reality check and the real practice of relationships. So I just wanted to give you a shout out for that. And I'm glad to hear more about your journey. And I want to actually invite you here from the start to go a little bit deeper into that. I know you're from the Czech Republic, so I'd really love to hear about your background and your origin, what it was like growing up there, and when you moved, why you moved, how that experience was. If you want to share a little bit more personal detail, if you're open to that kind of cultural background.
Yeah. No, so I don't think I'm any different than many of us. I was born in Czech Republic up until the age of 15. I lived there. I was raised there. Um, the maybe something that was in the early stages. My mother was really the guiding spiritual principle of our house, and Czech Republic is specifically, I think it's like 94% atheist because of communism. It just wiped out all religions or any sorts of belief systems. And in that, she was working with shamans. She was working from a young age. She made us work with the energy workers and healers. And I remember I was like 12 years old in a yoga classes with my mom, all 99% women. And now I would appreciate it in a different way, but back then I felt awkward uh doing yoga. And so it was like in there with me, but yet I was living a regular life. I wanted to be a boy, right? I was doing soccer. I later on turned into a professional cyclist, road cyclist. So I actually traveled the world with cycling. And at about age of 17, my dad basically gave me a choice. You either go to school and your life is paid for, or you do your little cycling thing and you're gonna have to figure it out. And so, of course, I chose to do and pursue my dream, which was to become a professional athlete. And I started my first company. I found what's now called, drop ship. I literally was getting into a carbon bike frame business, and I would start selling, the same quality carbon bike frames without the main brands to other cyclists or companies. I would like white label different carbon bike frames. And it ended up, growing quite sizably to a point where I used all of the races that I went to around the world to like start negotiating deals with local bike stores to have their own, custom bike frames. And essentially, I did it so much so that I completely crashed out energetically. And, cycling is a super demanding sport. It's 7, 8 hours on a bike ride. It's 20,000 miles generally a year of racing. And I would be on a calls with manufacturers, So basically, I put the picture from Alibaba originally. I put it on eBay. I would sell it on eBay, and then from that eBay money that I would make, I would pay for the Alibaba purchase, and then have it shipped to them to US or Europe. And that's how I started with $0, the first, eventually $1 million company. But, I also hit the first pivotal moment. I could not recover and at the same time do what I was doing, one man show. And I basically one day woke up in the hospital. My body completely shut down in the middle of Czech national race, and I essentially had to quit cycling because I had a chronic fatigue, Epstein Barr. I literally was sick every 2 weeks. My immune system was just so busted from the no rest, and loaded with series of different autoimmune conditions. And that's what led me into biohacking. That's what led me to find Wim Hof, Dave Asprey. This is uh, maybe 12, 13 years ago. And I basically afterwards moved to America, and I decided to, start a life here. I had some business experience, of course, not to the extent probably that I would need to. I didn't really learn it from school. I actually paid my friend to finish online high school for me. That's the level of how much I was against the traditional schooling system. I just could not live within it. But I was extremely interested in self-education, growth, retreats, and workshops, and that's kind of what led my never-ending, search. That voice inside of me that kept on telling me, you know, following the different educational, things that I wanted to learn. Well, and so long story short, I ended up having to find a business to get a visa to be able to, live in America. And it started off with a sushi restaurant in Boulder, Colorado. I don't think I told you this before, but basically within 3 months, it didn't qualify for the visa. So I had to find a different business, and I ended up finding a tutti frutti frozen yogurt chain in Hawaii. So I never lived there. I moved to Hawaii to literally start opening frozen yogurt stores. I was about 21 years old. And then I got really sick and tired of making people fat. So already in that time, knowing what I knew through my self education and knowing what I was pouring into the milk and whatever, the frozen powders come from, it was gross. So I left Hawaii and I found Orange Theory Fitness uh, location in Tampa, Florida. And I was about 22 years old at that time. And basically, I was like, wow, this is exactly like I used to train, as a professional athlete. I want to learn how I can franchise this. And this is when they only had about 6 locations. It was totally, new concept. They now have like 2,000, locations, just to give you the difference. And that was me as a kid driving across the state and literally talking to the CEO and founder. I think they wanted to kind of blow me off in a ways because I was like, what can I franchise? I have some experience. I would love to, be part of your company. And they told me, well, we have a Georgia state available, but you've got 2 days to basically sign all the contracts, put down the deposits, and otherwise we're gonna keep it because, once a year the franchises do a redisclosure. So there's like a dark period when you cannot sell franchises. And then it's like the new, contracts that come through. And so I was able to get it all signed, get it all done. And within, few days, I was driving up to Atlanta to move there. And within 6 months, we became the fastest growing region in the entire Orange Theory fitness chain. And I bought it with 25 licenses. We ended up opening 55 just in state of Georgia. And then I also partnered with the CEO and president of the Orange Theory to open what we call the super urban projects. And I basically went into Bay Area, Oregon, Nevada, Hawaii, Florida, and ended up making it my first like really big success financially, but also from like a business, with having almost 100 locations under my belt before I was 26. And so through this, I hit the same wall again. Just like at the cyclist, I was just overcompensating, doing too much work, doing, like almost it became an obsession, with like opening more locations. And I completely burned out, just like, in the cycling days. But the one thing that I did keep within, my life was every 3 to 4 months, I booked myself a trip somewhere in the world in search of what is true meaning of life. And these were, crazy things. Like I spent times with the samurais in Japan. I went with the Zen master training, with monks. I've trained with the psychics in Brazil. I spent, now 50 days in total, so 10 days every time in dark room, with no food, no light, with breatharians. And so these were some of the things that I was able to like come back to that true essence. And it wasn't until about 8 or 9 years ago that I went to the dark room for the first time that everything just shifted for me. It was day 7. I just completely lost it. I start crying and purging and went into this beautiful state of bliss. And for the first time in my life, I was able to connect to that essence of who I am, not what I'm being told, not the stories that I'm telling about myself. And in that moment, I knew that I got to follow my passion. I got to, connect to my purpose and leave legacy here on earth. And basically, I walked out of that dark room I start selling pretty much anything conventional. I went into the full spiritual side of my life, and I basically started originally Noah Aeon, which was, you know, doing solfeggio frequency music production, retreats, workshops, immersive experiences, how we can give this knowledge out to the world, and then also an e-commerce business with consulting and working on other, you know, longevity type clinics and centers. And so it laid down this foundation for this new evolution, but within 2 years I lost everything. Before COVID, you know, right at the COVID hit, everything that I've built myself to, I basically said I don't like money, you know, in a lot of ways. And I went into the second extreme of, you know, getting too spiritual, not realizing that we're living, you know, in a third dimension, and it's the balance that I now understand. There's nothing wrong with money, there's nothing wrong with, you know, any of this. And so so I had to rebuild myself back up, and that's where we are today.
Wow. Can you hear me?
Yep, yep.
Great. Yeah, thank you for sharing. What a journey. That's such a powerful and honestly impressive, amazing life story. Um, you know, I the fact that throughout your 20s you were such a big time entrepreneur, and then you brought that passion to your spiritual path and eventually began finding a middle way where you're combining your uh, prowess with business and with um, networking together with your inner work that you've gone so deep into all over the world is really fascinating. And so I'm so happy that we're able to be here for this whole conversation. And there's a lot that we're going to get into, a lot of insights, a lot of practices today. It's a pretty full curriculum, but thank you for sharing about the story. It brings up some follow-up questions and comments for me. So one of them is, um, you mentioned kind of the why being so big for you with Upper AEON. And one thing I want to ask is why you recently decided to change the name from Noah Aeon to Upper Aeon, and if you can share a little bit about your current edge of evolution with the work you're doing now, what your mission is.
Yeah, so, you know, I've always had this deep feeling and knowing that we can truly, you know, we came here to Earth to make this new shift to what I like to call the Earth 2.0. And some people call it New Earth. You know, it comes from all different places. I've chosen this name purposely because it's a parallel Earth that is as simple as, you know, the choices that we're making is the reality we're co-creating. And because of this, originally Noah Aeon actually symbolizes duality. And it's funny, it was exactly where I was in life. I was having highs and lows, and I was trying to find this balance, this harmony line in the middle. And what's super interesting is I work with a divine soul blueprint coach that looks at your life from the energetics. And it was one of those, you know, many things that I've always been continuously striving to clear. And it came from my previous marriage. There was nobody in my life that I just could not make it work. And I didn't understand why there is so much pain and friction. And, you know, she was able to go into the soul level, into a different lifetime, that we basically, that it was flipped upside down, which is why this lifetime, you know, she perceives me as the villain. And eventually it healed my marriage, or my previous marriage, to a point where, you know, we're beautiful friends now, we're co-parents, and it was never like, you could not believe how bad it was, you know, to get it this far. So through this work, I also was doing something called like your guide work, to connect to your guide system, understanding the names of your guides, where they're from. And it's just a really interesting, powerful work that we've done both with my current wife as well. And what happened was, so this lady that does not know anything about me, right? Like, I'm on a call like with someone completely you know, third party, and she tells me that my main guide is AEON, and it's her. So it's a female, and she comes to me in darkness and silence. And I was like, what? And this lady, right, doesn't know me. And I literally call my company Noah Aeon. And it comes from the dark room, right? The inspiration in the darkness. And then, I was just like, wow, wow, wow. Now, few months later, or actually a couple of years later, I asked her, how does the Aeon spelled? Is it AEON or is it AON? And she said it's AEON. And basically, I was still operating on the old note. So if you look at life, I truly believe that, if there is such thing as matrix, it operates on a certain frequency and vibration. Now we can tune into that vibration, or we also can be tuned into a different frequency, similar to a sound. You've got 440 hertz, which we know it's distorting your brain, but then you also have 432 hertz or 528 hertz, which is so much closer to God. So that's just an example. Is everything starts from the level of thought, energy that goes into action through our choices and consequences that follow. And so when I start researching Aeon, I start understanding and seeing that it goes all the way back to the ancient Gnostic tradition, from which, like, this is pre the Bible that we know. This is before everything was altered, so to speak. And so I start learning and diving into the Gnostics, and it was teaching basically divine love, union, everything that I've always shared as like my mission and what I truly feel that I'm here. It was all under this thing that literally uh came from a totally third party, while I came to the conclusion of it inside of a dark room. So it was like, wow, like we have to shift, we have to change, and we need to bring the true meaning of these Gnostics that they have been hidden, so for so many years before recent times, back into, our everyday life. And the way we do it is through, breath, through dance, through meditation, through, getting people into a state of cohesion, through sound. And it's exactly how it used to be. We're just modernizing this into today's era. But very long story short, we had to make this evolution because also my current wife wasn't part of the Noah Aeon from the beginning, and it had this whole like old part of me, so we wanted to really start fresh, even though we left, many thousands of, customers and followers. We wanted to work with quality, and we are here to basically attract the people that are ready to be able to come into this level of frequency with us, because not everybody, it's not everybody's thing. So quality over quantity, and mission, over friction, so to speak.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I can really relate to that because actually, this podcast, which is called the Interworld Podcast, is part of our rebranding evolution too. And for ever since I was 2 years old, when I met my uh, current friend and collaborator that lives in the community with us, and we started this organization as children, um, it was called World Changers. And then we had Heartfire Festival, and then we created Sanctorum Eco Village. But just in this new phase of things that we're still stepping into right now with this podcast and this year and creating this new academy and this new quality, we're shifting everything into Interworld. So it's all going to be called Interworld Institute. So I can definitely relate to that. Both the vision of like allowing your brand and your organization to evolve with your being and your surroundings, and also this sense of a really big connection to your life mission. Like sometimes it almost feels like this is why we're here on the planet, period. It's like, there's no reason to stick around unless we are fully dedicating ourselves to what it is that we're actually here to do, our sole assignment, our mission for being incarnated in the first place. So I can relate because from a business perspective, they always say like, what's your mission and how do you motivate and what's your why? But when it's completely embodied in every cell of your own being, at a level of truth that you are truly yourself, and even your whole life is dedicated to this mission and this reason for being, literally, like not just as a marketing ploy, but as the heart of your own existence, then, it kind of transcends the entrepreneurial advice about having a big mission that's motivating, and goes to the point of like a spiritual reality that's embedded into the business side as well. So that's, something that I think is powerful. And I want to invite you. So you mentioned, I don't know if you've met, when you mentioned Wim Hof, is that someone you actually worked with directly, or just the modality itself?
Yeah, so I think it was the second group ever of teacher training of teachers that was coming out. So very very early on, I made a trip to Poland. So I actually did the winter excursion with Wim directly, and then I went on a year-long training to learn, because when I had a crazy story. Like I literally came into that Polish retreat mildly sick. Like I had like literally kidney pain. I was like, barely okay with an immune system. And then I go through like a brutal cold and breath, process, starting the day with, standing up on a sheared snow for 30 minutes with your barefoot. And I was like, holy shit, like this is really powerful. And so it's funny, it's also linked. I have another guide, his name is Broadwick, and he's literally the guide of breath, of the ha. That's how he communicates with me. So it was, from that same conversation. But it's I loved it so much so that I've immediately wanted to bring it to US. And at that time, I also opened something called Atmosphere. It was the largest yoga, fitness, meditation studio in the Southeast in Atlanta. And it was right next to Orange Theory. So I would have Orange Theory for the high intensity, and then I would have, Atmosphere for this like immersive, thing. And that's where I actually started my breath work. So when I brought it back, I would start doing, first weekly, I used to call it I Essence classes before System Reset. And it became the most popular class very quickly. Again, this is like 8 years ago, and basically I just knew like, wow, like I gotta combine what I love, and that's sound, music, DJing, dancing, with breath and with meditation. But it wasn't so much so even about like that it's the like conventional combination. I've noticed that when you combine these elements, it's actually the quickest way to access these high vibratory and frequency states, because you're directly through movement, through sound, through energy, shifting. And so that's why it became such a powerful thing for me, that eventually I start touring with it, just like any other DJ. I for about 5 years, we've been doing over 100 events every single year, all across the world, seeding these grids of love, of energy, of cohesion. And that's the after effect that you've experienced, in Colorado. We bring people into this deep state, and this is how we're supporting back Earth. We keep on taking, and this is our way to giving, nurturing and loving and appreciating, because we're so underloved, both as humans, right? We crave love so much, and so does Earth, because just like your podcast, the reflection on the inside also reflects on the outside.
Beautiful. Yeah, exactly. You also mentioned, I want to move on to a few different topics with the time we have. I want to get into some key insights and kernels of wisdom or theory background that you want to share, but also some practice. And before we do that, and then maybe circle back around at the end also to this entrepreneurial stuff. But before we do any of that, I wanted to stick with the name for a second. Just say, I think it's really interesting that this new adaptation from Noah Aeon to Upper Aeon spelled with the E. I don't remember the letter, but there's that letter from, I think, influenced by ancient Greek probably, where the A and the E are combined into one letter. You know what I'm talking about? Like the A, E together. And it shows up in the word ether, like the fifth element ether with an A and an E. And then it also shows up in this word aeon, which from the Gnostic angle, which sort of connects to some of my dissertation research in alchemical traditions, is like the realms, like these different realms or dimensions of existence, the rungs of emanation from the one, from the monad, into the manifest world. And then on the other hand, eon is also literally like the Earth 2.0 idea you're talking about. There's this use of the word eon in terms of the cycle of the ages, like a new era, a new eon of time, like a huge period or cycle of time. So on one hand, it's the new Earth, it's the new paradigm, the new age is an eon. And on the other hand, it's a emanation or rung in the emanations of the one light into existence. So it's a very fascinating and multifaceted esoteric topic, but both the spelling with the E and the dual meaning there, I find to be very interesting. So I just wanted to mention that and say that I appreciate that. And if there's anything you want to add before we move on, feel free.
Well, honestly, again, I'm just like humbling at awe, because for me, so I do believe there's a big like importance, the power of words, the power of symbols, the power of colors, but I've never really paid like I understand it, I try to feel it, but it's not really like my thing. Like I don't really understand, like the font for, like there's people that would specialize in that. For me, it's always like very intuitively comes into the space. But I truly also believe that there's this like veil still that's clouding it, that keeps on opening more and more. But it's actually so much deeper, this thing that we're doing, that we even realize. And I just allow it to unfold as the next kind of calling comes in. And for me, what I come back to always when I'm deciding, what projects we take on or what we're gonna do, it's like, what's the maximum amount of consciousness expansion that we can allow through the work that we're doing in the place of service? And that way, it's so easy then, to kind of decide. And now that I have this like directing principle that I can always go back to, that's way bigger than myself, we always say like, this mission is yours to lead, because it's not about me, it's not about my wife, it's about self-governance, it's about self responsibility, and it's then bringing that highest path within you, sharing it with others. And I think that's where still a big portion of this world is missing, that is because we are still looking outside of ourselves, and including myself. Like I literally, it's actually this month, this is something maybe interesting, so you understand like where I am. you know on the one hand, I truly believe in this essence and energy, how everything, can be given, but just with the power of thought. And every time I go into the dark room, I understand what that means. But then on the other hand, I wake up in the morning and then I'm like, I need my caffeine. And then, I love nicotine. Not like a smoking, but from like a nootropic way, like a microdose. I also love nootropics and all of these other ways to heighten my state. But then I'm like, you know, it's owning me, and I had to make a true like question to myself, like, do I own this, and or does it own me? And I went on this deep rabbit hole, which is so interesting. I started thinking like, wow, look how purposely and perfectly our reality is hooking us in to this autopilot, so that way we don't go back to that inner deep connection with source. And let me show you examples how it may even perceive for others. So for me, it's been like caffeine, it's also then like over workout, right? Like I get into cycling and now I want to cycle more. It's education. So many times we think that we're doing a good thing, that we keep on listening to new podcasts, listening to new books, but then we just keep on more and more information coming in, not embodying and not working with that either, and then just losing that information as we go. So even though we perceively through our moral system think that we're doing something good for us, it still is just another translated way for us to keep us away from us. So this month has been really deep for me, because every day I have released something that I am not addicted to, but that I'm obsessed by, or that I just like think that I can't go without it. And and let me tell you something. People say, "Oh yeah, I don't need a coffee." Well, then try to go for 30 days without it, if you've been using it, right, for the last 2 years, or this can be for any other things. So yeah, so long story short, like I'm literally doing everything opposite of what my mind wants me to do, what I am, wired through my neural pathways into every day, so I can shatter this sameness that is keeping me hooked to this limited reality. And so I'm actually, through this process as it works, I'm working on a process of unhooking that I can share with others. But not until I can, truly go through it and embody it. But I'm literally now, it's like day 4, and this will go all the way up until next month. So I'm doing a 30 days of this where I'm completely eliminating anything that I'm dependent on any level.
Yeah. Wow. These are rich. These aren't just kernels of insight. They're nuggets of gold. I love it. Yeah, this is such a deep topic, and I think it's amazing that you can even take it, because I think this is the true deeper like gnosis or meaning of the Gnostic teachings, like you said, that outside of the intellectual symbolism and association, you get out of the philosophy of, is it a veil, is it evil, is it an illusion, are we escaping? You remove all of those theories and just focus on the lived experience, the actual reality. Like, oh yeah, for instance, in this incarnate plane, I am constantly being tested by what hooks my attention, what puts me in autopilot, what owns me instead of me owning it. And that's such a deep topic. Even in the shamanic plant-based traditions I've encountered, for instance, with tobacco, there's like a teaching that I've heard about when you're praying with tobacco to keep your thumb, that there's like a vice of the V of the two fingers that people smoke cigarettes, and that hooks them into a certain plane, and then the spirit of the tobacco is imposing its will on you. And on the rare occasion where one might pray with tobacco traditionally without inhaling it, the thumb finger, which connects to your own willpower, allows you not to be pinned down, but to rise above the power of that, because it's such a powerful will. It's such a powerful spirit, that plant, the tobacco. So I think it's really cool to hear you, and I can relate so much myself and on a similar journey. And I think that's really the journey we're all on, right? Is how do we pierce past the veil of the attachments that in the traditions I study, I've heard it called the sublunar plane. Like, as long as we're in the sublunar plane, there are things that attract us back, like compulsions, desires, needs, wants, that bring us back and hook us into this particular density. Whereas if we can master that, include it, transcend it, and be free to choose, then I think it's exercising exactly the muscles you're talking about, of gradually graduating. It might be a graduation from just nicotine and caffeine every day to like learning more information or taking nootropics, but then you need to graduate further, like whatever your habitual dependency is. How do you get up past that? It's such a deep topic. I don't know if I'm doing it justice, but I'm really glad you bring it up. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Well,
Yeah.
this is literally like our life, and this is what I come to a conclusion, is that, like, if there is one thing that truly is, like, could be our enemy, or not even enemy, but like how we are being controlled, it's our mind, it's our thoughts. And I could actually go so much deeper, but I haven't fully like integrated even what's happened in the last like 6 months. But in a short stake, like, I keep on getting these like strong mental thoughts that were coming to me throughout the day, of thoughts that I like don't want to think. Like, I was like, this is not me. Like, what do you want? It was this like battle that I had to, process, and it was linked with my trauma from a young age. And it's also wild how every thought, emotion, word that we've ever said is what creates this reality upon what you're living now. But if you deconstruct all that, all the protective mechanisms, you can actually completely come back into the full union with God. But now let's make it more practical, so that way this can be helpful for the listeners, because this is what I've learned. Life is cyclical. Everything in life keeps on coming back to us, no matter how you look at it. It's really just the levels of how conscious you are of that either happening to you, or you're making it happen for you to be able to process. Now, we've chosen to live here on Earth, and we are co-creating this reality upon what we've known that was instilled in us since we were young. Now, what we're doing all now on this path, especially, older we get, right? We have to completely crash those old wiring, which is why I call it the software is our mind, and then the hardware is our body, the physical body. And then, of course, you've got emotions, which is what makes this life feel real. And then you've got your spiritual body or energy that's connected to the limitless source of all information. I call that the me, the individual consciousness that you can directly affect, and that is that responsibility on this journey through self-transformation, as to where and what we follow. Now, what I'm finding, and this is again very much true for majority of us, is that we are waking up first, a lot of us, through the physical body. Like, we are starting to be more conscious, right? We're being more healthy. We eat better. We know the implications of different diets. We understand exercise and sleep and so forth. And that's exactly for me. For me, the journey began with healing my Epstein-Barr, chronic fatigue, like not to be sick constantly, because we can only take so much of this limitless source of information as attuned our physical body, is. And so the levels of unhooking and opening all of the helixes, the energy centers inside us, to be able to observe this deep energy, outside of us as well. Now, how did this start? It started for me with noticing this simple 4-step process that can be used for anything. So first, you're waking up. We're all on this process of waking up. And what that means is we're starting to bring to the awareness, to the surface, those things that simply no longer work. This is why the most important thing in life is questioning everything and observing that person behind the observer to understand what is unfolding. So I'll give you an example. When I woke up with my physical body health, I went into, let's say, a doctor. They gave me a blood test that told me that, I was high on environmental toxins, low on vitamin D, and so on, right? So it gives you a data set. So just to give you an example, what this first phase of waking up can be. It can be also as simple as noticing the same type of thought, the same type of relationships or people that you're attracting to your life. It's also the same type of barrier that you hit at work, at your career. So as you can see, like, it's just starting to understand and viewing these patterns that will keep on repeating. There is no grass greener on the other side. There is only you processing it on the inside, so it never comes back again. Any of these cycles that we don't want them to come back. The second phase to this cycle is cleaning up. You got to get rid of the old to open up the room for the new. It means you start processing that information. So if I was high on environmental toxins, I will start detoxing, the body. If I thought that I was not good enough, this was a big thing. I kept on overcompensating that I'm not good enough, that I had a fear of loss. Like, it was a big one for me, this belief from very young age that I'm always going to get, I'm going to lose someone, my money, wife, it was this like big thing for me. And so then I had to transmute that. So anywhere that feeling was coming up, I would go back to breath. I would surrender. I would start working with that emotion, on that level. So clean up is the second phase. Then you've got to power up, the third phase. This is when we're starting to go back into offense. Now we know that let's say we know from the wake up phase that our vitamin D is low. So in a power up phase, you will supplement vitamin D. You will start thinking higher thoughts about yourself. You will bring a new ideas into the flourishing. This is when you go into an offense, you take back the charge of your driving vehicle and you move forward. So wake up, clean up, power up. Now you are really feeling this journey in your hands. So that way you can rest up and you repeat this cycle. When you're resting up, this is when you reassess. You take time for yourself in stillness and solitude. You unhook from the busy world. You detox from the digital world, from the physical world. You take time to just go inward, so that way you can reassess on all of the different ways where you at. And To give you an example, I applied exactly this into the most prominent areas of my life. So for me, first, it was the physical health. Then it was the mind, the thoughts, or the constant negative thoughts, which, we know that 95% of all our thoughts is just a repetition, but 80% of those are negative. Recent studies show this. And basically, if we're constantly thinking so negatively about ourselves, about our world, then guess what we're creating? And if you can think about every thought or emotion as a program, like an app on an iPhone or on your phone or computer, right? This is what you're doing is you're looking at the app, and if those apps that you're using is no longer serving you, you delete the app. You start working and clearing and cleansing it. And this is why it does not work without a connection to the internet, right? When you go on a computer or phone, you have to be connected to the internet to download new software. But what you do for your own life is you connect to the inner net. It is the inner knowing. It's changing the brain waves. This is why breath, sound, meditation, visualization, these are the tools how we can start, clearing those thoughts and emotions. And so long story short, I started applying it to all of these different areas of my life. And instead of being afraid and kind of like hiding, which I used to do, I used to run away from pain, run away from problem, because I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to process it. I instead go in, I lean in, and I welcome this because it means it's an opportunity to release even further, to expand even deeper. So wake up, clean up, power up, and rest up.
Amazing. There's some really fun and exciting parallels from long before I met you, but in our work that really excite me about the possibilities of getting to know each other a little better and potentially collaborating, because there's just some really fascinating synchronicities there for me between the work you're sharing, the insights you're sharing, and the innovations that I'm developing in my work with psychology and wellness coaching. And this idea of what is holistic, connected to our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual being, but also our relational, our vocational, and the universal dimensions of our life as well. And with those insights about what does it look like to take responsibility and elevate our existence instead of just complaining or avoiding or resisting, and all these other kind of nuanced insights that we can explore and share and learn about, which clearly there's a whole language model that you're developing that has these really cool connections with the stuff that I've been looking into. But then there's the practice, right? And so I don't know if what you just shared is kind of what you meant when you said at the beginning off camera that you like to emphasize, jump right into live action tools and interactive learning, or if there's anything you want to add on that practical front. But I want to invite you to do that and share why, if there's anything you want to add on that before we kind of move on to some of our last topics.
Yeah, well, let's go. So let's do a little reassessment tool. So as I mentioned to you before, the rest up phase is, I would say, even the most important, because as we've talked about before, that we're constantly in a state of doing, whatever it's reading and TV or cleaning house, right? Imagine like whenever your mind is actually quiet, your mind thinks that it's the death for your mind, right? So it's just like a child. It needs to keep on being occupied. But if we don't take handle of that, it can turn into obsessions. It can turn into addiction. It can turn into this over basically a virus, right? If you had a virus on your computer, it will do whatever it wants, right? And that's exactly what we have to prevent on everyday basis. And also, this is why, like, I like to teach something called the instant presence. And if you can take something from today, it's literally, it's this tool. It's completely changed my life, and it brought me from the unconscious mind into the conscious mind. And again, I'm not perfect. It's like as much as I can remember, as much as I can come back to this is what alters the power of it. But you can do it and start it right now as you're listening to this. And this is what I love about this. It's so easy. So step one is you want to observe your breath in and out your nose for about 6 seconds on inhale, and 6 seconds on exhale. So whatever you're driving, whatever you are, maybe you're walking in nature, sitting at home, just fully become aware of your breath. It's long, deep, extended 6 seconds in and 6 seconds out. Now you want to use your diaphragm. You want to reconnect to the belly, to the chest, and really just feel this satiation as if you were eating each and every breath. Because when we are aware of our breath, it's the first key of moving outside of that matrix, that autopilot that we're constantly living on. The second part to this we're going to add, and that is your body's awareness. In this world, we constantly live in the past, in the future. We are extended on our phones, computers, and I want you to fully step into your body and ask yourself, where am I? Where am I? You can even close your eyes if you're not driving and just really take this time to go inward. And I want you to imagine these champagne like bubbles bubbling up around your body. And imagine these doors as if you were opening up these doors through those bubbles. And the next time that you inhale for 6 seconds, I want you to draw through these bubbles and exhale out these bubbles. When you're breathing, I want you to breathe through every pore of your skin, not just your nose. We are so much more than we think. And with each and every doorway, you're opening up this potential to more relaxation, more ease, and allow all of your muscles just to let it all go. Become aware of being aware. This is what people mean. You're connected to your breath and you're fully in a relaxed form in the entirety of your whole body. The third part is, can you be aware of the stillness and silence underneath whatever you are in the world? You could be in the busiest place on earth, in the middle of subway, music festival, but you can still be aware of your breath, body awareness, and stillness and silence underneath the noise of our life. And to give you a simple example, the next time that you go on your phone, instead of you being sucked by the phone or computer on your email, see if you can be aware of your breath. Breathe through your whole body, be in a relaxed state, so that way the phone just becomes an extension of you, not you becoming the phone and losing yourself in the process of it. And so this is what I call the instant presence. I try to come back to this as often as I can when I'm listening, when I am in the process of, just coming back. And it's the simple things that will alter and change that busy, overly analyzing beta brainwaves into more of that alpha, theta, and gamma dominance in our everyday life. Now, from this place, I do a little self-assessment. So I'm going to introduce something called a process of unhooking, which I do in a cyclical way, and it's the way to no longer experience burnouts. So once a day, I spend the first 30 to 60 minutes of the day just by myself. I go into nature, outside my yard. I connect to the trees and I go into breath. I do this little instant presence, to first just collect myself. And then I do a little check-in and I look at the most prominent things in life. And I want to do that with you. I use that wake up phase of the 4-step process. And so from this elevated place of an emotion, of acceptance, of gratitude, I want you to, simply connect to your physical body. And by the way, you can even write this down if you want to. And what we're going to do is we're going to rate the different aspects of us, the most important ones for the day, from the number to 0 to 10. So 10, you're at optimal health or optimal, satisfaction. 0, there is a lot of work to do. And so what I want you to do is first just close your eyes if you can, connect back into the physical body and start speaking to your body as if it's your best friend. I like to share, my dear body, I love and appreciate all of you, my temple. But today I would like to ask you, if there was a number between 0 to 10, what is my health like today? And just think of that number. Whatever number comes to you first, just trust it and write it down as a nice little self-assessment of the physical body health. Now, the second body is I want you to, come back inside again and connect to your mind. Sometimes I like to imagine a mirror in front of me, and in the mirror, see your mind in a form of object. So it helps you, to have that transmission. And just whatever comes to you, just trust the way. Just doesn't have to be perfect. And start talking to your mind. My dear mind, I love and appreciate all of your ideas, your thoughts, your visions. But I want to ask you now, if there was a number between 0 to 10, what is my mental health, mental state like today? And just write down that number, whatever comes to you, taking your time. And then I like to connect to my emotional body, the third part of the different bodies that we are experiencing and expressing as. And the lowest state of emotions is apathy. When we don't care anymore. This is when we shove it down and then it just gets stuck there. And then you've got the highest state of emotions, which is joy, happiness. And then we've got, guilt, jealousy, pain, sorrow, all in between. But today, just connect to your feelings and just start talking to your emotions as your best friend. My dear emotions, I love and appreciate all of your feelings, the high, the low, and the ones in between. But if there was a number today between 0 to 10, what is my emotional state like? How do I feel? And just allow that number to come through you, through your heart, and write it down whenever you have it. Now, the fourth body that I like to connect to is the esoteric, spiritual, or energetic body. Now, that speaks to us in many different ways, but when I went to Brazil, I got to spend a month with the psychics, and they taught me something very interesting. We've got 5 physical senses that get us in trouble, the overconsumption, oversensory of anything. And then we've got 4 mystical senses that connects us to this limitless source of information. The first part is your inner hearing. These are the little whispers that are not the loud, monkey brain. Maybe at night they tell you to turn off the Netflix, start working out. Maybe they've been telling you, quit drinking alcohol. It always has your back. That's how you know that it is of your highest good. Then you've got your inner feeling, the empaths of the world. When you have a wrong feeling about someone or a good feeling about a situation. Then you've got your inner seeing, direct visions, colors, or representations of in a lucid dream. And then the last one is your inner knowing. This is your deep intuition. When you think, you do not know. But when you know, you do not require to think. It's those times when you knew that you shouldn't have gotten to the party. You knew that that person was cheating on you. And so these senses is prominent way to then integrate with our monkey brain, with our physical, manifestations. And so I want you to close your eyes again, center in, and just connect to what I like to call the original source vibration that gives you life when you're born and goes back into oneness when we die. And just speak, my dear highest self, or vibration or source. I love and appreciate all of your guidance. And today I would like to ask you between the numbers 0 to 10, what is my connection to you? Tune into that and allow that number, whatever comes, to simply write down. And of course, in my practice, I would then also write other questions like what is working, what is not, how do I improve it? That's kind of the next layer. But at first, you got to wake up, you got to get that data set. And for the sake of this time, let's do 2 more. So the next one is relationships, because so many of us are, in relationships with all of us around. And so, close your eyes again and just imagine yourself sitting in a center of 3 to 5 people that you spend the most time with. And just like a football coach, I want you to look at their eyes and go one by one and just ask this question. Do I bring the best of this person And do they bring the best of me? Or is there some work to do? And just connect for a moment, because we become the total sum of the people we spend the most time with. So sense who is serving you, who is not, because not everybody will make the cut, and that's okay too. And when you feel that reflection, that feedback that you're receiving, just notice that through those four senses that we've discussed: the feeling, the knowing, the seeing. So we can now put that into practice. And then simply state, ask, to all my relationships, I love and appreciate the good, the bad, the loved ones, the tough ones. But if there was a number today between 0 to 10, what is the quality of my relationships today? And just write it down, whatever comes first. And again, big piece of this process is not to beating yourself up with a stick, just letting and allowing it as it unfolds. And then the last piece of today is, let's connect to our career, or the ways in which we make a means of living in this world, because also so many of us are struggling. Do I want to live in service? There's a deeper calling, but then yet, obviously we need to feed our kids and families. And so tune in for this moment and just connect into the ways of your career, connect into what you're doing today, connect into how you used to do it, as well as what your highest, dreams and outcomes would be. And just start asking the unified field these questions. If there was today, I love and appreciate all the opportunities in which I'm getting to express myself. But if there was a number between 0 to 10, how fulfilled, how aligned am I to with my career? And just connect to that number that comes to you, and whatever comes, just allow it to write down. And I believe we've got 4, 5, 6. We've got 6 different, uh, things that we have looked into, that we've revisited. And so what we can do now is you can add up all the numbers together, and you can divide it by 6, just to get a nice, running average. And what I'm getting here to is, you can go get your blood test, and you can test your EEG and HRV, and you can do a very advanced ways of waking up. But at the end of the day, when you connect to your body, your intuition, your inner innate intelligence, that gives you all the answers. And it's just us building the trust and taking the time to slow it down enough so we can hear this wisdom, hear these thoughts. And so for me, it took literally 10 days in darkness to finally hear myself. But now, instead of having to go there, all the time, I get to do it once a day for 30 to 60 minutes. I just connect. I get to do it once a week, right? So for full day, once a week, I completely unhook from the digital, physical. I spend the first half of the day with myself, just writing. I mean, I'm coming off of a weekend, full of stuff. So literally, here's my notebook of just me being without a cell phone. And then once a month, I do 3 to 4 days where I completely unhook as well. And once a year, I do it for 15 days. And this is the way I've been able to, not have these highs and lows, living in a pure balance, and constantly just getting closer and closer to my highest dreams that I have here on earth. But without taking the time, how do you even know what your dreams are? Without understanding that we come first, everything else comes first. And so you may wake up one day, 30 years later, thinking that I've been wanting to do this thing since I was, I don't know, 20. And then you waste your whole life, thinking that one day you will get to it, but yet we're living it here right now, today. And so this is why I was so scared that I will wake up like this one day, not living to and my highest dreams and outcomes. But also, I used to have a different dreams because they were connected to what the society was telling me to. So my old dreams was to be a billionaire and to, have cars and homes and whatever else that were, programmed to. But now my dreams is to see the Earth 2.0, is to see my kids, growing up in a place of safety, oneness, unity, where there is enough, where wars don't even exist, where we live and co-create something so magical and beautiful that we literally have to rethink because how programmed we have been. And so I've been on a tangent and I'm going to pass it back to you.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much. What powerful practices. And thank you for giving us a little taste, little experiential, interactive taste there is very, very special. And this has been such a valuable contribution to the podcast. You know, part of our whole mission is to create a hybrid academy where there's in-person experiences and there's also virtual experiences, but it's all meant to be educational, but holistically educational, not just conceptually. So this is really rich stuff. Clearly you are very good at what you do, and that's probably a big part of why it's so successful. um, since that was just a taste, I don't know if you have off the top of your mind information for listeners who may be interested in more events they could come to or ways to follow you or sign up. Of course, the podcast will have its links, but and just looking up your name and Upper AEON, of course. But if there's anything you want to plug as far as upcoming dates or platforms for people to connect with these types of practices to experience it a little bit more fully in person or slowed down or somehow with community, what things would you mention for us?
For sure. So I would love to take you on a journey. And so step one is that we are operating on a school community, and there is something called 7-day commitment to you. And so it's been specifically designed to unhook from the busy, busy world. And so that's at a school, SKOOL, dash system reset. It's our system reset community. We launched it recently, but it almost has 1,000 people already. We haven't even publicly launched it, so it's something new. And you can find people like you. So those of you that are in this path, those of you that have been, going through the transformation and they're looking for more, they're looking for the right community, all across the world. This is it. It's all free. It gives you also other education, and it's all gamified. So you actually unlock more education with interacting and with really being part of that community, which is what I love so much, because again, we don't want to give you too much information if you can't embody it and then share it with others. So that's step one. The other step is you can join us at any of our events. That's on our upperaeon.com. You can go under events where we our next event is tomorrow in Dallas. Then we've got Phoenix. Then we're doing Asian tour, and we also work privately. Quite a bit with if that's something that you're looking for, conscious birthday party or at home experience or team building. And then lastly is we also have combined an integrated series of products that we have actually found extremely important with changing the brainwaves. So we've got something called a consciousness expansion. We use something called Neurovisor, which is a light stimulation that helps you take the beta brainwaves off. And even in just a 6 minute, it's a theta inducer. So it actually helps the monkey brain to shut off, to be able to move back into your heart. We've got different things like Apollo, which is a nervous system. This is something that works directly with your vagus nerve, and it keeps you in parasympathetic nervous system or parasympathetic state, because it's so important in today's world of constant stress. So anyways, long story short, we've got all of these different tools that we've picked up on, found throughout the world, that actually work and have the validation to support it.
Very cool. Yeah, so I like this theme that seems to resonate throughout today's episode of unhooking, like this question of possession. Like, are you possessing your phone or is your phone possessing you? Are you possessing your morning drink or is your morning drink actually holding you? It's a very interesting theme that I feel, runs through today's episode. So thank you for sharing about your work. I will say again, there's slightly different flavors and qualities in how we're doing things, different exposure, different lineages, I'm sure. But the breath work, the dance, the biohacking through the light and the temperature and so on, these are all topics that are near and dear to my heart. We're currently doing wellness series in person in Colorado Springs every year, every few months, kind of seasonally. So we did energy work, which is Qigong in Chinese. And then we had a breathwork course where we shared an introductory level to some of the global yogic conscious breathing practices. And then the next one is Dreamwork series at the end of the year. So I think that'll be October. And then you mentioned your Asia tour. And I think I told you last time I saw you at the end of this year, we're probably doing a whole special group trip to Japan. They're giving away properties there, and we want to film a docuseries. So I don't know if we'll be overlapping, but it'll be interesting to check what your dates are, because we're going to Japan at the end of this year.
Yeah, I remember that. It's funny. We were supposed to go there as well for a summit, but I didn't even mention this. Something that's really interesting is we have a longevity spiritual clinic in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. It's called Amani. And it's something that we're going to be starting to bring people for individual and group retreats. And I literally put everything that we've learned under one roof. It's 33,000 square feet, 3-floor penthouse in the oldest rainforest in the world. So it's actually, Malaysia is really underrated. Many people don't even know of it. People go to Thailand or Bali, before. And so that's why we actually went there. And we're also working on a darkroom retreat, which will be south of Miami. So we will be able to actually have a darkroom retreat for people in US as well, because it's, very difficult to go where I've been going, and it's not pleasurable, experience. It's not luxe version at all.
Yeah. Well, very exciting stuff. Big respect to all the work you're doing. Impressive, inspiring, effective. And I think the more we can all team up and really build a whole new, truly unified and collective network and grid of energy and people holding different parts of this, the better for the planet and for humanity. So I'm glad that we can keep bridging with each other more. I will say, in terms of the inspiration, there's some really fun similarities between what I experienced at your event and what happens to kind of organically be coming together with some other friends of ours. Ishkala, who's an amazing visionary artist on the West Coast, and James Karan, her husband, and my friend Emmy from Kansas. We're doing a big September tour here around the Southwest region that culminates in a fall equinox wellness retreat on our land at the Eco Village here. And pretty much every stop includes components of sound meditation, the breath work that I tend to facilitate, and then, a whole 360 emergence is the type of guided ecstatic dance that Emmy facilitates, which is based in 5 rhythms, influences, and then James and Jamishka, they do like a whole interactive music concert at the end. So it's a lot of fun. So just to wrap up, I want to, I guess, plant the seed. I know you had expressed some interest in coming to visit our land. I'm not sure if you're still on the call. It seems like you might have dropped out for a sec there. But if you
Oh,
can
yeah,
hear
still
me,
here.
maybe.
Sorry, I'm trying to. Yeah, I'm here. I'm just refiring the video. It's giving me a hard time.
Oh, you're good. That's all right. And also, even if it's choppy for either of us, the recording should be good quality. But yeah, just to wrap up, I guess I want to say respect again. You're helping make this podcast and this whole operation what it is with your contribution. It just keeps getting better and better. We have amazing guests already on season 1, and you're a great sample of what we're moving towards, with a really, really epic and exciting array of world-class speakers coming to share, just like you did on this second and third season that we're moving into with the podcast now. So thanks for being a part of that. And we're going to keep exploring different lengths of episodes, some solo episodes, and bridge it into courses and things. But some of these interviews, I just want to keep going because it's so rich, like this one with you. But I know we need to draw it to a close here now. So I just want to invite, if you have any last thoughts, we can also speak later on ourselves about this, but just about any ideas you have with the ways to co-create in the shared mission of the paradigm shift from within. which is one of the many areas of core overlap for us. What does that look like? And I know that you were interested in coming to see our land here at the Eco Village with your family, maybe checking it out. I'm not sure where you're based right now, but I know you're constantly traveling. So there's an open invitation if you want to create some sort of event with us next time that you come to Colorado and see the land. We can definitely explore the possibilities and introduce you to some of our work here in person as well. So if you have any last thoughts about particular things that interest you or excite you, or that you want to ask for or contribute in that area, feel free. Otherwise, we can save it for our own follow-up and close here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would just say, for really for everyone, it's like you are so incredible. Like when I see these places that we travel to, there's so many beautiful people in the world. 95% of the world is actually incredible. 5% of the world needs a lot of work, and that's what we see in the media, right? All that we're seeing in the media is the 5% that's bad, because that's what they make money from, and that's how they keep us enslaved. But what I really, really, really deeply want to share with all of you is just continue focusing on the highest outcomes. Continue welcoming whatever pain or suffering you might be going through, because at the end of fear is love. At the end of pain is love. There's nothing that holds us back but our own selves. And more of us can realize that we're shifting into this trajectory, and more of us can start taking, starting with 5 minutes a day, then going to 10, going to 60, but then make this life, this dedication to this higher purpose for all of us, this higher guidance, that we didn't come here to be slaves to work. We didn't come here to, literally be slaves to this weird network. Like, we came here to play, to have fun, to enjoy. And so remember who you are at the core. It's all there.
Great. Well, thank you again, Pavel. Always great to see you. Let's keep in touch, and I hope that people have gotten some real value out of this conversation. I know I have, and I'm happy to be exploring these topics with you today. So blessings to you in your life, your work, and your family and path, and peace to everybody.
Thank you all so much.